Okay, very good. Let's kick off. We have a keynote panel next, and I'm going to be really looking forward to this one because I'm going to hand over to somebody who is a real procurement expert. He's an expert moderator. He works at CaseMe, and he oversees the content for hundreds of events. And before that, some of you may or may not know that he was in the music industry for about 20 years, and he supported various bands that you might have heard of, like the Beatles and Queen. And he's going to bring some of that glitz and glamour, some of that rock star feel to the next session. So I'm going to hand over to Graham Cranshaw.
Excellent, thank you. Thank you. Excellent. All right, just encouraging everyone to come back for our session. And yeah, you make it sound very glamorous. And one of these days, I should do a presentation on my work in the music industry. But for now, you've got me talking with an amazing panel all about supply relationship management. I'm going to welcome the panel. Come to the stage, get settled in, because we've got limited time today to get through an awful lot. So I'm going to let you get settled, and then we'll do some introductions. So this is all about getting value from suppliers through supplier relationship management. And I really want it to be that we're going to give you some takeaways, some things that you could use in your organization. I think we all understand the challenges and the problems that we face, but it's so much more than that. It's what can you actually do that's going to enhance the relationships. And we're going to cover that in a number of areas, looking at whether it's saving costs, cost avoidance, removing risk, to give you some ideas there. And I think with all the pressures that we've got, then actually cost avoidance is probably coming up as one of those hot topics that everyone is talking about. Because with inflation as it is, depending where you are in the world, it may be a massive challenge. So how can relationships really help? Now, we're going to try and get this as interactive as possible. So please stay awake. During the points, we won't be using any vast technology, but we will be asking for shows of hands to get a feel from the audience as to where you think that some of these areas are going. Let me introduce the panel, and I'm going to start right the furthest down, and then just very briefly your sort of name and company. Then we have more time for the conversation. So you've all got your microphones.
All right, good morning. My name is Deepak Dwivedi. I'm part of Nokia company. I'm heading the market procurement for APJ. So predominantly we are buying a lot of material and resources here in this market where we are rolling out thousands of network sites. Yeah, I'm based in Singapore for the last 10 years. Yeah, this is all about me. Thank you.
Excellent. Rohit, over to you.
Thank you. My name is Rohit. I'm from Thalia, which is a SAP company, and we focus on helping organizations unlock value from their supply chains. My background is 18 years working with large corporates in Asia to help them unlock financing and working capital. Pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Hi, good morning. My name is Sui Yong. I take care of the procurement department in Cable Data Center. So we are actually a data center provider, colo enterprise. So I also help to purchase a lot of equipment in terms of core equipment for building facilities as well as maintenance. Nice to be here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, hi everybody. Good morning. My name is Tina Wallen. I'm part of Schneider Electric. Very pleased to be here today. I'm responsible for a part of Schneider, which is Global Customer Projects and Services. So basically do a lot of procurement in this space related to site activities, installations, transports, civil, electrical, maintenance type of parts. I've been with Schneider for 6 months. Before that, I came from a renewable energy company called Vestas, where I was also doing procurement.
Excellent. Well, welcome everybody. Let's go straight to the first question, and that is, how can we establish deeper relationships and build on them. So very specific here. How can we establish and build on them? Sui Young, let's go to you first. What are your ideas?
Yeah, thanks, Graham. So first of all, I would think that first of all, in terms of building a supplier relationship, we need to look into not just the competency of the supplier. We need to look into how the value of the supplier, how the generate value, the value engineering gels with your business model. So once you have established that, we will need to work into how we can do the incremental volume. Because at the end of the day, the suppliers look into us for how we can grow with them. So we need to leverage, bring them into our plan, bring them into our future plan, and then establish that foresight with them. Then this is how we will be able to build value with the suppliers that we have identified.
Excellent. Deepak, let's go to you.
Yeah, it's all about creating value and growth together. So we have SRM as a priority in the organization. So the management investment in time and effort that is needed to do that. And how do we achieve that is making sure that we collaborate with our supplier in a way that we go across all the organization of the supplier, be it tier 1, 2, or 3, depending on the criticality of items that we are buying from the organization. And this is how we have been doing this year.
Excellent. Tina, I'd like to make it up.
Yeah, thank you. So maybe in addition to the value creation, which I, of course, very much subscribe to, I think there is also the element of trust. So absolutely key to create that collaboration is trust, because if we don't trust each other, we will never really get to the next level. So how do you build trust? I'm in a position where I guess I'm very fortunate to have a lot of suppliers, maybe way too many suppliers. So it really starts with understanding which are the key suppliers for my business and how do we create that trust element between us, and from there basically take the relationship forward.
So I really like the word trust. I mean, we tend to use the word trust when we think of our own sort of marriages and that sort of thing. What does trust really mean? How are you defining trust? I mean, you say we need trust in the relationship, but can you just give a bit more to it? What do you mean when you say trust?
Yeah. So I think it starts with, so trust is very different from everybody. I was once told that there is 2 different categories of trust. There's the people that trust first, and there's the people that trust after. And I'm definitely a trust after person. So, you know, I don't walk into a meeting and immediately trust someone. It really comes back to that we need to get to know each other. We need to understand basically where are we going, what is our vision, what is our tactics, and how do we go together. So now really, to answer your question, where does the trust come? For me, it's when you start actually sharing beyond what are the things that you can read on the internet or what is commonly known in the market. When you start seeing elements of that, companies opening up, basically us taking our 3-year pipeline and saying, okay, this is our strategy, this is where we're going. That's information that's not known to everybody. That's only a very selected amount of suppliers that will have that. And when that basically get a response from the supplier, basically sharing the same kind of information with us, that's where I think you have a very good proof on that you have trust in your relationship.
Excellent. And then that's something you build on. Rohit, back to the original question. How are you establishing deeper relationships and building on them?
So because of the work that we do, we get to see kind of like take a backseat and look at companies and their best practices. And there are 3 things that we kind of seeing in organizations that manage their supply chains very well. One is knowing their supplier. So it's not... Organizations spend a lot of time knowing their customer, but they don't often spend that much time knowing their supplier. So it's not only about the product they sell, what is the business processes, who are the people behind that, knowing at the leadership level. This is very important to create that first avenue of trust. Second is having a communication that is driven data-oriented. So it's not emotionally driven, it's driven by data, right? And having a consistent data that helps there a lot. And third, last but not least, is helping suppliers not only innovate from product perspective, but business processes. These are very important, right? In times like inflation or recession that we've been talking about that's going to come here, we need to think out of the box. How do we help our suppliers, to innovate better with their processes, with what they do as a business? Talk about simple things like digitization. And these are things, all elements that can contribute to a long-standing relationship and also trust fundamentally.
So the trust and also whether it's the data or the emotion, that all goes into that relationship. First show of hands then. Who in the room would say they've got that trust with their major key suppliers? Is that trust in place? Hands up if the answer is yes. Let's get a feel. So there's a lot of hands that aren't up, I must say. So I think we've been already saying it's about building it, and it does take time. It's not a quick process. So hopefully those of you that haven't quite put your hands up yet are still working on that to get that established. Deepak, you've been talking about, or you mentioned in our planning session, about an ecosystem network that you've got in your organization. Can you just add a bit more to that and explain how that fits in, please?
Yeah, so it's a framework, we call it Open Ecosystem Network, which allows us to interact and collaborate with not only our suppliers, but also academia, also a wider network of people that can contribute in product development. So we are taking issues related to process improvement, product innovation, business model innovation, and a lot of other things that is required to improve our product design and affordability. So in this network, you can find thousands of people that are already there today, and it's running for the last 6-7 years.
Excellent, good, thank you. Okay, so having sort of built the relationship and sort of trying to get that deeper trust, that deeper relationship with the suppliers, you've mentioned, some of you already mentioned innovation. And to me, that's one of those words that's badly abused. Everyone talks about innovation. And really getting that innovation, it's not easy. I think some of the things we've spoke about, trust, need to be in place first. But let's talk about how you could focus on innovation. First of all, what does that really mean as far as you're concerned, that focused on innovation? Swee-Young, what's your perspective on this?
Okay, so first of all, innovation for products, I think everybody will know how much you can get out of the product and how much value you can generate out of the products. But however, in terms of our relationship with the supplier, first of all, I look into how willing is the supplier willing to tweak their business model to fit into our processes. That means into our purchasing needs. So that means, for example, if a supplier who has a very strict rules in the segments, how they organize in the segment, and we have overlapping countries, how willing are they to change the whole segment to the segmenting just to fulfill our fulfillment needs in the respecting country? So this is one. Number two is that to bring the supplier into the future together with me, what we establish is a peer-to-peer network, peer-to-peer management. So i.e. to say, we will want to identify the top management of the suppliers and link them up with the top management in my end, so that at every level they have a direct communication with the supplier, and also we will be able to know the new product that's coming, and the supplier will know how we can bring them into the future, how they can generate the value out of the supplier's volume. So this is how we want to, these are the two ways that we can innovate in terms of how we deepen the relationship.
So multiple connections between you as procurement and the supplier at different levels, obviously with different conversations, different interests, and that collectively then helps drive innovation for your company.
Yes. So it's also good that even to the extent where you know their back-end processes, you get to know their procurement and get in touch with their challenges and how we can tell them about our future needs, and so that they can plan to fulfill our needs in future.
Excellent. Tina, innovation for you. What's your understanding of the word innovation?
Yeah, so for me, innovation, it starts with both parties needs to understand basically each other's companies and what is it that we're trying to solve with this innovation. And I think this is something that comes through those engagement, those connect to suppliers kind of sessions and so forth. So when the objective is clear, normally we see that together we have a challenge to solve for. Maybe we need to be more cost competitive, maybe we need to be quicker, maybe we need to secure capacity together. So there's different routes of innovation that can happen. And coming back to what Suwan was saying, I think it comes back to also understanding that it's not just procurement speaking to the salesperson where the innovation will come. It's about having that framework and objective clarified, and then connect the right people within the organization. Because if you're looking at technical innovation, most likely it's R&D to R&D that needs to speak with the sales, basically being the voice of the customer on what is needed here. So I think when you have that kind of mechanism in place, I think that's where the magic starts happening, so to say. And when we really see the true outcome of innovation, that's when we go way beyond a value creation that we can achieve in the commercial negotiations.
Excellent. So second poll, show of hands again, as we're not using any technology. So in the audience, who would say that the way you encourage innovation with your suppliers is effective? Do you think you've got it working right? You've heard some ideas from the panel how they are doing it. Is that happening in practice? Who is effective at bringing in innovation to your company? Anyone saying that? Let's have a show of hands. So not too many. So it sounds like there's still quite a lot of work to do in terms of actually encouraging suppliers to work with you to get that innovation.
Yeah. And maybe to add on that as well, I think here procurement and supply chain has a very key role to play within our own company, so to say, because we are the ones who have a very good idea on what's available out in the market, basically challenge our internal departments to think outside of the box and bring in that outside-in perspective into the discussions. And I think we are very well placed to push that agenda within our companies.
Excellent, thank you. Deepak, Nokia, any thoughts specifically on driving innovation?
Yeah, I think I would say that innovation is the vehicle which allows partnership to put in the mainframe. So for us, supplier-enabled innovation is the key here. When it comes to product, then we are working on different initiatives which are around process innovation, product innovation, business model innovation. So what we are telling our supplier is, okay, this is your roadmap, this is your product and your product innovation. Share with us, also understand what we are going to deliver to our customer, and try to see how you can integrate your process innovation into our innovation. And that's going to help tremendously, in terms of our product development and efficiency that we are gaining out of that. Also on the services side, there are a lot of initiatives around delivery model innovation, efficiencies that we are gaining in terms of remotization, automation. So a lot of good ideas, I would say, come from suppliers in this stream.
But again, just checking with you, you've also got to be offering something to the supplier. It can't be a one-way journey, can it? You can't just sit there and say, I've issued out an RFP, you've got to do X number of innovative ideas. It's got to be, we're back to this relationship. We've got to have that trust in place. Does that take time?
Yeah, I think it takes time, but I think for us, we are lucky that we can offer more volume to our suppliers. Can have long-term business relationship because the product cycle is more than 10 years. So once you are engaged in the organization, you are supplying to us, then if the relationship goes well, then you can be assured of long-term commitment that we can give 5 to 10 years and supply stays with us. And of course, we are running a lot of supply development programs that is helping them to not only work in certain territory, but also taking it to other places where it's possible. So I think it's holistic view in terms of how we can generate more business and also gain efficiencies.
Excellent. Rohit, anything to add on the innovation front?
I mean, I would just say it's the ecosystem approach, right? So you have to treat your suppliers like they could be your customer tomorrow, right? So, and I think there's an industry called aviation, which went through multiple crises. And if you look at the life cycle of those products, they work so closely with the suppliers that even on the times of crisis, they actually stand still, right? And this is, again, the approach, right? Today, your supplier could be your customer, and you have to treat them in parallel, in partnership to co-innovate, jointly develop, and go to market as well, because more tied up to your supply chain that you are, the more closer to your supplier you are, you can actually go to time to value to products in the market is much faster.
Excellent. So linked with all of this, an underlying theme is one of collaboration. another of those words that you hear procurement always talking about. We've got to collaborate. We've got to work with our suppliers. I'm keen from your perspective, what does that actually mean to get collaboration with suppliers? How do you actually drive that collaboration? Sui Young, let's go to you first.
Yeah. So first of all, let me share a term that I usually use with my team. That is called reverse sales. Procurement is actually reverse sales, because for the sales they take care of the customer. Procurement, we take care of the suppliers. So it's important that we also have that kind of sales relationship with the supplier. We also need to be able to understand the supplier's needs. What are they looking at, and what are they planning for? How they build into our future plan. So this is one of the collaboration that we are looking at. And with the peer-to-peer network that we establish, they will have the trust that they have exposure, the top have the exposure to the top management has the exposure to your top management. And all these strategic discussion can happen. And how the strategic discussion cascade down to the tactical execution, they will have a very clear understanding of how we want it to work and how you want to bring it forward. So this is where the collaboration is and where the trust is built. And really, this is what I always say, we are reverse sales. Look at them as the customer, the voice of the supplier. We need to VOS also. So understand them as much as they want to understand us. Yeah.
Excellent. Tina, before you said that you almost have to have earn that trust, and rather than just assume it. From what we've been hearing in terms of relationship building, collaboration building, how long are we talking about? How long does it take to get to that state that collaboration is within the relationship? Months, years?
Oh, well, that's a very difficult question.
I like the difficult ones.
Well, it's a very personal view, so to say, and I think honestly sometimes the trust can be earned quite quickly. If a supplier is coming through in a difficult time, you see that they are going the extra mile. You instantly get this feeling, okay, I didn't trust you as a starting point because that's who I am as a person, but I can see that we're going to be building something good here, and the trust is there. On the upper side, I think there's also supplier relationships that I have been part of, where even after 10 years, we still don't have the level of trust that we should be having between us because of history, because of maybe conflicting goals and so forth. And that's, of course, that's not really a fun collaboration and a relationship to work with. And I think it comes back to when I'm sitting and deciding how do I dispose my time, I would always put my time towards the collaboration and the relationships, which gives me energy that generates value versus the other ones that are just draining.
Right.
Long answer to
it almost does go hand in hand. And it's interesting how we're building this puzzle to add all the pieces in. And suddenly you get that point that you've got everything working, whether it is the innovation, the collaboration, the relationships. So
No, exactly. And I think it's also, now I spoke a lot about my ability to trust the suppliers, but it also goes the other way around because it takes two to tango. So the supplier also needs to trust us in the same way. And,
Right.
that's also something to gauge. Are they trusting us to the extent where we are their preferred customer, or is it more lip service that we're seeing here?
And that's where procurement's got this really difficult position to face between procurement, between the supply, but also internally. And you may have spent all this time building the trust, the collaboration. If your CFO then demands you achieve cost savings where you need a blunt stick, it's really a bit of a conflict. So you've got to manage that. Rohit, I can see you're acknowledging that. You've obviously, it resonates with you.
Absolutely.
What's your view?
Absolutely. I mean, when you think about cost savings, right, it's not just pushing down a cost savings target to the supplier. It's also understanding what ticks with them, right? Understanding their process. And I think the panelists talked about knowing your supplier, the key, right? Knowing the senior management, knowing the business processes, knowing what actually works for them and how can they innovate to deliver those cost savings. I think these are critical factors. And obviously trust is a process. It takes time. In some cases, it might take years to build. But what is the consistency, right? And what is the consistency and predictability? That's a key things that help accelerate those trust and tough conversation. Now I think most of procurement folks will be having tough conversations with their suppliers, right? And things that you've done in the last 5 years are going to come to play now, in terms of relationships, how much you have invested in those relationships, knowing the supplier, knowing their business cycle. So I think these are the key factors.
Okay, we've not spoken about risk so far. That comes very firmly into so much of what procurement does. Swee-Young, risk, how does that feature within your whole relationship building with suppliers?
Okay, so first of all, in terms of risk management, I go down to the tier 2 suppliers. So basically, we need to understand who are their tier 2 suppliers and how, and it's possible, can we engage directly with the tier 2 suppliers to understand how they are managing these purchases and how this fulfillment is being done. So this is where we need to go one level down in terms of...
And have you time for that? We always talk about, you've got to know these tier 2 suppliers. It's easy to say, that is not easy to do. Have you got the information? Can you get that knowledge about the tier 2 suppliers?
Okay, so we are into data center. So first of all, cabling is very important. So the tier 2 suppliers for our main con is usually one of the cabling contractors will be one of them. So what we do is that we will have certain tier 2 supplier that we want to manage directly, and eventually we pass these tier 2 suppliers to the main con and say that, hey, you can work with them. And we have certain agreement that is in terms of risk mitigation, in terms of supply chain disruptions, how we mitigate it, and eventually get the main con to deliver the product that we need in terms of a feed out, in terms of connectivity. So this is how we actually try to mitigate the risk through the tier 2 suppliers, identifying them, working with them with the peer-to-peer, with this kind of structure, and also understand the supplier, and eventually get them into the main contractors ecosystem, and eventually delivering our product.
So another poll in the room. Who would raise your hand if you think that or if you would say that you've got enough knowledge of your tier 2 suppliers to effectively manage risks coming from them? I think that says an awful lot. Deepak, what would you say from Nokia in terms of eliminating or reducing risk?
I think we have talked about one particular topic, which is global semiconductor shortages, and we are one of the biggest consumers of this semiconductor material. I would say that we need visibility on second level and third level also. So this issue is not very recent, but also, it's going back 2-3 years where the whole problem started. So you are not collaborating only with the main chip manufacturer, but also going to substrate supplier and looking at their business model, whether it's aligned to our requirement in some way. Are our tier 1 suppliers are having same kind of governance practices which takes care of our concerns. So there is also an alignment that is needed at the last level, because some of these items become very, very critical in our operations.
Okay, excellent. I'm going to jump, because mindful of time, we had some of our time cut. How do you see the future of relationships? So we've defined what they're looking like. We understand what you're working on, how to get this collaboration, the innovation, the reduced risk. We could have also talked about reduced cost. It's all about the relationship. So what is that future look like? Rohit, let's go to you on this one.
I think it's going to be a lot on supply chain sustainability, and that includes ESG as well. When you look at what's coming in the next 3 to 5 years, is that customers are demanding sustainability from companies that they deal with. So once consumers start demanding sustainable practices, you have to obviously bring it out to your supply chain as well. And I think Mackenzie pointed out 2/3 is coming from scope 3, which is your supply chain. So that is a key aspect that, obviously we have to be mindful of. And again, having a mindset which is collaborative is going to be more helpful, because not every supplier has the same ESG goals as you. Let's be fair. Everybody has, ESG means different things, right? So in this room, we have 1,000 people. We could have 1,000 versions of ESG. Harmonizing that, aligning that to your goals is going to be crucial aspect of this collaboration between suppliers and buyers.
But I think however you define it within your organization, that is a tremendous opportunity for procurement. And I think if you're not taking that up now, then you probably should get some time and really sort of focus on that. Fortunately, we've got that coming up in the agenda later on in the conference. Deepak, future of supply relationships, what's your view?
So besides sustainability and ESG, which has come here, of course, we need to spend more money and efforts in building relationship in terms of investments. So we can say that, the digital platform that you're using and investment they're doing, that's going to increase over a period of time. Open network that we have talked about. We are also looking at crowdsourcing as a platform that allows us to hire a lot of workers. So it's more digital way of working that will come in the future, yeah.
Excellent, thank you. Tina?
Yeah, the future is looking bright, I think that's so.
Good, I'm glad you're upbeat about this. So it should be. I mean, let's face it, we may have these challenges, but what a fantastic time to be in procurement. What's the future of the relationships?
Yeah, no, exactly. So I think if we look at the procurement role as such, I think the requirements on us is just going to go up basically, because like looking at the McKinsey chart as well, 10 years ago it was okay, you were excellent if you were a good negotiator. Today you're basically, the expectations are you basically need to be able to run almost a small business with your suppliers to address all these different angles, capacity, risk, sustainability, to mention a few, diversity and so forth. So I think the key is really to build the right relationships, strong collaboration, but with the key suppliers. You're not going to be able to do it with everybody, so be very clear about who is the preferred supplier. Coming back to the digitalization, I think digitalization has a very big and great role to play here. However, I don't think it's going to take away the personal touch and the need that we human have to connect as well. So I think we can do a lot in digitalization that will help us be more effective in our collaboration, but I still see that there is a need and a space for face-to-face human interaction.
I'm glad you've said that, because I think at times we can get the view that it's all going to be automated, the negotiation, we saw various sort of models already this morning, but actually the relationships are how you get things done. It was very clear during the pandemic that it was because of relationships procurement was so successful. So we need to build on that and do more. Yes, have the tools to support, but that's what you need to really drive it forward. Sui Young, what's your view on this? The future of relationships.
Yeah, I think I totally agree that the pandemic actually bring out the essence of procurement. That's number one. So I think to stretch it further a bit, I think internally before we talk about relationship, I think the CEOs need to also start to rethink how procurement is being strategically placed. I.e. to say, why not let procurement manage the budget directly? Let them manage the budget directly and get all the cost savings that you need. Change procurement into a revenue center to bring out the value of procurement in any organization, because we are don't measure us by cost, measure us by the value. And in order to do that, we need to have the management of spend. We need to have we need to be able to be a revenue center. Then from here, we move on to the supplier management. If we are in that position, then it puts us in a very good position for the supplier to really engage us and build that kind of relationship further with us and to manage the risk together with us. Very much like what we have been doing for pandemic, just stretching it further.
Excellent. So it's very much a process that procurement needs to go through. I think it's been very clear. It's not quick. You've got to get that trust in place. You've got to start by getting that collaboration, working with suppliers at multiple levels, getting that communication, encouraging that innovation by sharing information between procurement and supplier. I hope over the last 35 minutes we've been able to give you some takeaway points that you can then reflect on. Interesting, some of the live polls we did. There's quite a lot of work still to be done, but it's an exciting opportunity. I think we've just about got time for a question or two before we wrap up. Tracy, hello. Hang on, wait for the microphone. And I promise you, I don't know everyone's name. I just happen to know Tracy's name, having known her for many years.
to any of the panelists, can you please share with us, during your effort to do innovation with your vendors, have you talked about the right of intellectual property? If you have, how would it be designed? And then any idea or suggestion from any of you? Thank you.
Who'd like to take that intellectual property? Deepak, it sounds like a Nokia thing. I imagine you struggle with IP.
I haven't dealt directly on the IP side, actually. Yeah, so I can't comment on that. Yeah.
Swee-Young?
Yeah. Okay. So in my engagement with supplier in terms of intellectual property, we are very clear in terms of foreground. It belongs to a joint ownership. But when it comes to background, I will leave it totally to the supplier, because really we are not here in the business to replicate your business. We are here to work together. So that is why in terms of IP, we are always onto the foreground and not on the background.
Excellent. Are we out of time? I think we are. Tina, Swee-Young, Deepak, Rohit, thank you so much for sharing your ideas, and yeah, thank you very much.
So thanks, team. I think, Graham, panelists, you absolutely smashed it. We're going to go from a keynote panel to a keynote speaker.